Hey, guys and gals, it's Logan Freeman and
Alex Olson.
coming to you live with another multifamily minute. We did not have a multifamily minute last week, so Alex and I are excited to get back on the reins here and get a new video out. And there's been a lot of what I'll call market changes since the last couple of weeks that we want to talk about, because obviously the biggest question on everybody's mind is, how are apartment renters still making rent? And we hope to give you some explanations on that today. Alex is coming to you live in his office, the the car office. So appreciate that. We're working on a new acquisition for our new office, and in the meantime, Alex is working out of his office, and I love that. So, that question, how are renters still making rent, has definitely been one of the ongoing head scratchers of the pandemic. And how are apartment rents, how are the collections holding up so well despite all of the unemployment and predictions of doom? And so we've got some great commentary on that today, and we'll just jump right in. Sound good, Alex?
Sounds great. Let's get to it.
So, the National Multifamily Housing Council has been tracking the rent collections at 11.4 million apartments nationwide, and their numbers showed the bottom did not fall out in August when the benefits expired. So some 80% of renters paid at least partially the first week, and that jumped up to 86.9% by August 13, which is just off 2% from last year when the economy was booming. And Bob Hart, Bob Hart, the CEO of True America Multifamily out of Los Angeles, he oversees a portfolio of 50,000 apartments around the country. And he too is surprised at the rate of rent collections. And he said, the whole thing is just weird. And but he also mentioned we all have to remember that close to 90% of the country is still working, and the average Joe really is making an effort to pay rent. So that said, experts are pointing to a handful of factors that are aiding that high rent payment rate. So we're going to cover, I think, three. Yeah, I've got three kind of factors that are aiding that. And the first one is the increase in household savings. So renters who lost their jobs but received the $600 per week federal enhanced benefit check have been credited with keeping local businesses alive during this massive economic shutdown by spending on food, clothes, and other essentials with that money. But they also have been saving. So Joseph Biasi, an economist with CoStar, has been tracking the federal housing savings rate since the pandemic and recession began. And in February, before the economic disruption really took hold, households were saving a meager average of 8.3% of their income. Well, in April, when the pandemic started to force widespread shutdowns, that rate jumped to a whopping 33%. And so the savings rate is incredibly high. And he noted that in the Great Recession, the savings rate was a razor-thin 3%. So today's high rates provide many households with a cushion, even if they lost their jobs. And so that has to be one reason that apartment rent collections are so high. People seemingly have some money in the bank. Any thoughts on that, Alex, that you have been seeing, just in general with that, or any other commentary on that point?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people that lost their jobs are in the travel, entertainment, and service industry. I think many of those tend to be younger folks, and maybe even in college or just out of college, or in that age, the 20 to 30s. And
Yep.
There's also a lot of parents out there that, I'm not saying that they support them 100%, but I hear it all the time from my tenants of, my parents are helping me out with this and that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is some of that to it as well.
Sure. The second big point was that people want to pay. And so the aforementioned Hart at True America said that the apartment sector shouldn't underestimate renters' efforts to make rents. With local eviction bans in many big cities, landlords have feared even residents who are able to pay rent wouldn't. But for many landlords, that number has been insignificant. So like many large operators, True America has instituted a myriad of ways to help tenants keep up. They're waiving late fees, they're waiving credit card payment fees, and offering payment plans to allow back rent to be paid over time. But the True America found that fewer than 3% of tenants availed themselves of those payment plans. So they're not really using them when we look at the actual data. The average hardworking Joe is looking to pay their rent and looking for any way to do so. And I think that's really an important factor and something to think about. When you're looking at apartments to buy, you think about the classes: Class A multifamily, B, C, D, E and F, right? And typically the projects that Alex and I are bringing you guys are not that highly amenitized Class A, $2 a square foot for rents. And so when you think about it, it's a lot easier for somebody to, scrounge up $650 to $850 per month than it would be for them to maybe come up with $2,000 or $2,500 for rent. I mean, even if that quote unquote average Joe has to go strap on some, weed eater and blowers and go cut yards to make rent, it really does seem like they're trying to do that. And so I like that point, and I think it's a really important factor to think through when you're looking to invest in a certain class of property. And the third point that I wanted to make was that renters are either moving out or doubling up. So renters are moving out, especially in the most expensive markets and the newest properties. And there are empty apartments contribute to a higher vacancy rate, but are no longer recorded as units where rent isn't being collected. So apartment vacancy has jumped up at a historic rate, according to CoStar data. At 6.8%, the national vacancy average is up a full percentage point from this time last year. And the most pronounced rise has been in downtown areas. And so I think we're seeing that in Kansas City as well. Missouri as a whole is number 3 in the country for year-over-year one-bedroom apartment rent increases, right behind New Mexico and right in front of West Virginia. And we've got a link to that report that the Apartment Guide put out in our market commentary, so make sure to check that out. But there's a couple great graphs in this report and in the market commentary that we included. So to back up this point that they're moving out of larger metro areas and moving to more less densely populated areas like Kansas City, you can look at net absorption rates. And net absorption, the bottom net absorption is in areas like Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, the East Bay, San Jose, Midland, Texas, because of all the oil crisis, Chicago. And in the top net absorption rate, you've got Dallas, Fort Worth, Atlanta, Houston, Denver, Detroit, believe it or not, and Kansas City jumps right up in there. So throughout the Midwest, demand for apartments has held up remarkably well, which is a contrast to conventional wisdom, with Detroit ranking 4th across the country. Kansas City, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, and Columbus, Ohio, all ranked in the top 20 major markets for absorption during the second quarter. And so that corresponds
Great.
Yeah, that corresponds well to CoStar's daily asking rent series, which has shown that the Midwest saw one of the most limited impacts on the coronavirus's initial hit. So a number of Midwest markets show up at the top of the list of markets that have recovered the most since the initial March dip. And we have showcased that in recent market commentaries where, Kansas City's rent increases are still happening. Our vacancy is a little bit lower and our unemployment is also lower. The data is finally actually backing that up. So excited about Kansas City, excited about where we're positioned. One of the biggest challenges Alex and I are finding right now is still with sellers that are willing to sell their properties. And so we're working on a number of different initiatives. We're sending postcards to sellers when we close a property in their area. We're working on getting in front of sellers in very unique and creative ways. Alex is working out of his office a lot, driving around, looking at properties, talking to property owners, and we're making some headway. So stay tuned on that. We sent out an email last week that did not hit our whole list. So we're going to showcase a few properties this week, Alex, and talk to us about some of the hot deals that we want to consider. And let's start with the Raymore 32-unit townhouse project.
Yeah, the Raymore 32 units is a prime example of a suburban market that is, positioned very well through not only the pandemic, but for the future. It's an outlying suburb. These are 32 units, fourplexes, townhouse style with garages, relatively new build, finished in 2000. So for all of our clients that always want something 1978 and newer, this is a perfect fit for that. It's also under rented quite a little bit. And so you can get 32 units. And I think the cap rate on it, based on the as-is numbers, is somewhere around a 6.5 cap.
Yep.
And so that's a project that needs to be considered, and that I think will sell.
Yes, and I think that it's a great trend for folks to look at. These have garages. They're large units. They have driveways, and they're in a market that people are moving to or a sub-market that people are moving to because of the great school districts and larger space. So I have personally transacted quite a few deals down in Raymore, and I do think that that suburb is positioned really, really well. And if you like newer vintage, it's less than 20 years old. Large floor plans, 6.5% cap rate. And I think it's definitely one to look at. Now, that's a $4.8 million project. Alex, is that seller willing to break that up at all? Is he looking to sell those all in one package deal?
I think he'd be willing to break it up, of course, with the right offer. So you can come in and pick off 20 units if you wanted to in increments of 4, but I doubt he would go less than, 8 units per transaction. But it's a great, if you've got some 1031 exchange money, or you need a couple more townhouse style diversification projects, it's a perfect buy.
Great. All right, man. I like that project. I like Raymore. So make sure you guys check that deal out. Let's head on over to Eastern Jackson County, where Mr. Alex Olson himself lives. We go to downtown Lee Summit quite a bit, or we did during pre-COVID, and checked out 3rd Street Social. And this is a property that is downtown in Lee Summit. So talk to us about this mixed-use development right around $1 million in downtown Lee Summit.
This is a cool property for people that like diversification. So you've got 6 units that are traditional apartments. Then you have another 6 units that are office space. And there could be opportunity in there, depending on your style, to convert it all maybe someday to apartments or expand and do a larger office space. But it literally is downtown Lee Summit, which has significant growth. There's development going on downtown. I mean, the whole place has been redone, but then they're also adding mixed use, kind of very modern style building there where there once was a church. So, and I think I like these little office spaces because, it's something even for like me right here, right? Like I'm sitting in my office, but, it'd be cool to have an office that I can just go into, and it doesn't cost me a whole lot of money, but I can rent it, get out of the house, and do whatever out of it. From an office perspective, if you have a small floor plan or a small footprint, this is a great buy, especially since it already has multifamily in it. You could add to that however you see fit over time. And it's about a 6.5 cap rate as well, which is a great buy for Lee Summit.
Hey, Alex, is that retail spot or the office spot on this property leased up currently?
It is, yeah. It's a fully leased project, and so you don't have any vacancy, I don't believe, from the office standpoint, and they've been paying rent, and they've been there for a while. Okay,
fantastic. And talk to us about the Midtown project, the last deal that we're showcasing this week.
So we got 6 units in Midtown. It's in your traditional, beautiful colonnade style building, which is Kansas City's famous for. So it's your standard 6 true unit apartment complex. It has room to add at least an additional 1 unit into the basement or the lower level. And also, as an added bonus, you get a lot with it. So an empty lot that you could build on and add probably another sixplex, depending on exactly what you want it zoned as. And oh, by the way, this is located right next to the streetcar expansion and right next to our new office. So you know it's going to be a good area if we're investing in it. I mean, there's tons of investment down there. The
Yep.
building's been completely renovated with all your standard, I shouldn't say standard, but all your nice finishes, your stainless steel, your subway tile. Rents could maybe be pushed a little bit. And so it's a turnkey operation. You go in there, you got 1031 money, or you want to get into the Kansas City market for the first time. It's a safe bet on buying it, setting it, forgetting it, and then over time you've got that opportunity of adding that seventh unit and even building on it.
Awesome.
So it's a good investment for those that just want something that's not quite mailbox money, but still pretty dang close.
Beautiful, man. All right, brother. Well, that is what we are showcasing. We are working hard to continue to bring you good product, but these 3 projects I think will yield very well, and you should take a longer and deeper look. If you have questions about that, about Kansas City as a whole in an investment market, you know what to do. Always reach out to Alex and myself. Alex, thank you so much, man, for joining us today.
Thank you, brother.